Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. Atlanta is a large metropolitan state capital with a long history of human habitation. It was just a small settlement on the American frontier until the railroad came. After that, it was just a short jump to a major city. It is still a large and important city today. Here is what you need to know about Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta is the capital of the state of Georgia. It is a large city today with a current population of almost 500,000. This makes it the 37th most populous state in the nation and the 9th largest metropolitan area in the country. The greater Atlanta metro area is home to nearly 6 million people. It is also the county seat of Fulton County, with parts of the city extending into neighboring DeKalb County. It's not too shabby for a town that started as a railroad hub. Atlanta was founded as the last stop on a large, state-sponsored railroad. With the railroad came people, as they always did back in those days, and Atlanta soon grew to become a major city. The city's name comes from the Western and Atlantic Railroad's local depot and shows how great the city's reputation was as a hub for transportation. Native Americans lived in the area for thousands of years before the coming of Europeans. The most recent were the Creek, who lived in a village where Peachtree Creek flows into the Chattahoochee River. The village was called Standing Peachtree and was the closest Native American settlement to modern-day Atlanta. The U.S. government undertook a program of removing Native Americans from areas Europeans wanted to settle between 1802 and 1825. During this time, the Creek were forced from their village, and European settlers moved in soon after. However, the area that would become Atlanta was nothing more than a small pioneer settlement until several years later, when the railroad was built there. The General Assembly of Georgia voted in 1836 to build the Western and Atlantic Railroad in Georgia to establish a transportation link between Savannah and the American Midwest. The original planned route did not go to Atlanta, but to Chattanooga, Tennessee. When the engineers surveyed the area for the railroad, they put a 0-mile post marker in the ground at a place called 5 Points. People began flocking to the marker, thinking a town would be set up there. The next year, there was a working settlement there called Terminus, which later changed its name to Thrasherville. The Thrasherville name was after a local merchant who built houses and a general store in the settlement. By the time 1842 rolled around, Thrasherville had 6 buildings and 30 full-time residents, and had been renamed Marthasville after the then governor's daughter, Martha Lumpkin. In 1847, the chief engineer of the Georgia Railroad, J. Edgar Thompson, suggested Marthasville be renamed Atlanta after the railroad. The town's residents approved of the name change, and the town was incorporated that year as Atlanta. Atlanta had nearly 10,000 residents by 1860. It entered the Civil War soon after, and its position as the nexus of several railroad hubs made it a perfect location for distributing military supplies to the Confederate Army. During the war, in 1864, the Union Army captured nearby Chattanooga and marched toward Atlanta after that victory. Atlanta was big enough to resist the Union Army, and several major Civil War battles were fought on the outskirts of town. These culminated with the Battle of Atlanta, which was followed by a 4-month-long siege of the city by the Union. The siege was commanded by General William T. Sherman. On September 1, 1864, Confederate General John B. Hood ordered Confederate soldiers to retreat from Atlanta. Before the Confederate Army left town, however, Hood ordered his men to burn or otherwise destroy all of the city's public buildings and any other assets that might be of use to the Union. The mayor of Atlanta surrendered the city to the Union the next day, and General Sherman ordered the city's civilians to leave. Sherman then destroyed the rest of the city's military assets and used Atlanta as his hub for the march of the Union Army to the Atlantic Ocean. After the Civil War ended, the citizens of Atlanta came home and gradually rebuilt the city. It already had a superior railway network, making it a great location for a state capital. So, the state capital was moved from Milledgeville in 1868. By the time of the 1880 census, Atlanta had surpassed Savannah as the largest city in Georgia. Around the same time as that census, the Atlanta Constitution newspaper advertised Atlanta to potential investors as the premier city of the New South. This city would be based primarily on commerce rather than agriculture, as it was in the past. Investors came, and in 1885, the Georgia School of Technology, which is now known as Georgia Tech, opened, as well as the Atlanta University Center. These schools established Atlanta as a center for higher education, as well as for superior transportation and commerce. When Atlanta hosted the Cotton States and International Exposition in 1895, which had about 800,000 attendees, Atlanta's reputation as the center of the New South was solidified to the rest of the country. In the 1950s and 1960s, Atlanta was one of the major organizing cities for the new civil rights movement, attracting such movement leaders as Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and Ralph David Abernathy. As a modern city in the 21st century, Atlanta still retains its reputation as a superior city in nearly every way, including transportation, with the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport being located there. It is the busiest airport in the world by passenger traffic and has been since 1998. Atlanta has been many things to many people over the centuries, from a Native American village to a tiny American frontier settlement, and from a small town to a large city. Atlanta has changed and thrived with the times. It is still a major influence on both Southern and American culture today. Atlanta can safely be said to be one of the most famous state capitals in the United States. Thanks for spending time with me on the Ancestral Findings podcast. I always enjoy sharing these stories, tips, and discoveries with you. If you haven't already, head over to ancestralfindings.com, where you can download a free genealogy ebook, request a free lookup, and of course enter to win the next book giveaway. It's been an incredible journey together since 1995, and your support through these past 29 years means more to me than words can express. I'm so grateful for this wonderful community of genealogy enthusiasts who continue to inspire me every day. Keep up the great work on your family history research, and may your next find be as exciting as your first. Thank you again for being part of this journey, and as always, happy searching.